Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Umbrella Academy and exploring the differences between the comic book series and the Netflix show. We'll compare the characters, plot lines, and details that make these two versions unique in their own ways. Have you ever wondered how the characters differ between the comic book pages and the TV screens? Then get ready for a journey full of surprises and curiosities. Among all the members of the Umbrella Academy, number 5 is the one who most closely resembles his comic book counterpart. In both versions, he gets stuck in the future after time traveling and ends up returning to his child body, but with the mind of a man with over 40 years of wisdom. Even so, there are some important differences between the versions. In the comics, 5 discovers that due to his time-traveling adventures, his cells have stopped aging. This means he will forever look like a child, which makes him extremely frustrated and angry. In the 3rd volume of the comics, he even becomes a mercenary, offering his services to the highest bidder, while still wearing his old academy uniform. In the series, the story is different. 5 continues to age. This is clear when he encounters an older version of himself on a metal slab, and also because the actor playing the character, of course, is growing and changing over time. Klaus is undoubtedly the character who changes the most between the comic and series versions. He has the power to communicate with ghosts and spirits, using this ability in a rather unique way to try to fight crime. Or at least, to try. This power causes him pain and problems in both versions, but each portrays it in a different way. In the comics, Klaus is primarily called Seance, and appears as a perpetually sad boy who only wears black clothes. He resembles the comic book author more than the Klaus of the series. With his eternal look of sadness and strong connection to ghosts, he is a melancholic and introspective character, though he has a peculiar sarcastic humor. The Klaus of the series is much more cheerful and focused on parties and escapism. Still, both versions have moments where they discover surprising new powers. In the comics, Klaus discovers he has telekinesis, strong enough to prevent the moon from crashing into Earth. In the 3rd season of the series, Klaus discovers that he can come back to life. That's right, he is completely immortal and just needs some time to recover after dying. In the end, both in the comics and the series, Klaus's ability to channel spirits is crucial for saving the day. In the comics, he pretends to channel the spirit of his dead father to distract Vanya, making her believe she's being reprimanded by him. Of course, it's a lie, because, let's be honest, having your dad in your head is worse than saving the world. In the series, Klaus actually channels Ben, who uses his tentacles to defend against attackers, showing that Klaus's power to speak with the dead is as strong as it is unpredictable. Diego is one of the characters that changes quite a bit between the comics and the series. Both versions have the ability to throw knives with lethal precision, but the comic version has an extra trick. He can breathe underwater. This allows him to spend extended periods submerged, which proves quite useful in various situations. However, this power does not appear in the series, where Diego remains an imposing hero focused on his knife skills. Visually, Diego in the series has a much more menacing appearance. His stylized hair, reminiscent of the Crow character, combined with a mustache that looks like it's from a pirate movie, gives him a much stronger aura of danger than the Diego from the comics. Let's talk about one of the most interesting and central characters in the series, especially in the 1st season, Vanya, who later becomes Victor. Vanya/Victor is a key piece in the Umbrella Academy dynamics, both in the comics and in the series. At the start, he is seen as the only member without powers, which causes a lot of sadness and constant teasing from his father and siblings. In the comics, Vanya's story begins in a similar way, but with some important differences. Vanya doesn't even get a chance to enter the mansion for a dance sequence before being harshly reprimanded by Allison in the middle of a battle. Before this, he had already been approached by a mysterious man who claimed to want to use his violin skills for an apocalyptic performance. By the way, the 1st arc of the comics is called Apocalypse Suite, referring to this performance. After being rejected by the family due to his revealing book, Vanya returns to the music master. Let's face it, this guy didn't seem trustworthy, right? And, as expected, he ends up torturing and drastically altering Vanya's body, turning him into what he calls the White Violin. The ending in both the comics and the series features an iconic scene. Vanya, or Victor, in the series, uses his immense power to make giant pieces of the moon collide with Earth. But there is an important difference between the two. In the series, Victor has an emotional moment where his family finally starts to accept him and recognize him as a valuable member. In the comics, Vanya's fate is much darker. Number 5 makes a drastic decision and shoots Vanya in the back of the head, causing severe brain damage. As a result, Vanya suffers from amnesia and paralysis. and his white skin becomes a permanent mark of his trauma and power. In the series, Victor only acquires white skin when using his powers directly and does not need a violin to channel his abilities, making him even more powerful. One of the biggest differences between the two universes is how the world is depicted. Both the comics and the series take place in our time, but the comics are much more magical and bizarre. Hargreaves, for example, creates super strange inventions like space travel, elevators that go to the moon, and detective outfits that look like they are from an old movie but are still worn even after becoming outdated. The comic world seems more like something out of the 1950s than what we see in today's New York streets. In contrast, the series is more similar to what we actually know in the real world. It showcases real places and integrates the Umbrella Academy into our daily lives. This makes the series feel more realistic, but with that special and quirky touch of the Umbrella Academy. In comparison, the comic universe is a very different place, full of strange and unexpected elements. In the comics, Ben starts the story already dead, and a statue in his honor stands in the Academy's gardens. His early death is one of the reasons for the team's breakup, but the exact details are never clarified. In the series, Ben appears as a ghost constantly connected to Klaus, playing a more active role in the story. In the comics, there is a scene where Ben temporarily returns in a vision of Klaus, but he reveals he is not actually his brother. It's just Klaus's ability, something the series didn't explore. But in the series, the last season finally shows the reason for Ben's death. In the comics, the supervillains have a much more prominent presence and are full of personality. The Umbrella Academy faces a range of enemies with extravagant names, like Murder Magician and Dr. Terminal. These villains act like typical comic book antagonists, building giant robots and wearing flashy costumes. In the series, the focus is different. Instead of relying on these classic villains, the adaptation concentrates more on the Time Commission and Reginald Hargreaves himself as the main threats, leaving behind the traditional comic book villain gallery. The Hotel Oblivion, along with its sinister reflection, the Hotel Oblivion, is super important in the last season of the series. These mysterious buildings also play a big role in the third volume of the comics. In the series, the hotel appears as an old luxury hotel that was once very chic but is now abandoned. It was built in the 1920s by Sir Reginald Hargreaves and has hosted politicians, kings, celebrities, and famous people. But the hotel's true purpose was much more hidden. It was built around a portal that is basically a button to restart the universe. In the comics, the story of Hotel Oblivion is quite different. It was still created by Hargreaves, but with a completely different goal. The Hotel Oblivion in the comic version is located on an alien planet and serves as a prison for supervillains. Sir Reginald locks away all the villains he deems too dangerous for the Academy, keeping them imprisoned forever, living in endless boredom with no chance of escape. The third volume of the comics is even named after the hotel and revolves around a big escape by these villains. In the end, we discover that the hotel was also a trap for some kind of superpowered cosmic creature that is coming. Though, as always, Hargreaves doesn't share the details of this danger. Oh, and those insect samurais that appear in the series? They don't exist in the comics. Points to the TV adaptation for that different idea. In the second volume of the comics, a surprising revelation occurs. Two members of the Umbrella Academy are actually biological twins. Luther and Five share a special connection as twins born of the same mother, adding an extra layer of mystery to their story. But in the series, this idea is somewhat different. The show depicts Harlan causing the birth of 6 children, with the 7th being Ben's mother. This means that if Luther and Five were indeed twins in the series, there would be only 6 children born. In addition, this element of the twins is used in a unique way in the comics to highlight the connection between the two characters and explore their complicated relationship. This story twist shows how powerful and unique their bond is, making the Umbrella Academy's universe even richer. As we've seen, the Umbrella Academy comic book and Netflix series offer different takes on the same core story. While the series adapts the characters and world to fit a more realistic setting, the comics delve into a more fantastical and whimsical universe. Both versions have their own strengths and quirks, making each one a unique experience for fans. Which version of the Umbrella Academy do you prefer? Do you enjoy the more grounded and realistic portrayal of the series, or do you find the imaginative and fantastical elements of the comics more engaging? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this comparison, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and hit the like button to show your support. Thanks for watching.